Good afternoon, good evening, or good morning. Welcome to a Microsoft Reactor Sydney live stream event, and welcome to another episode of our July edition of In the Code Garden with Renee Noble. Today, you'll be learning all things front-end web development basics, which is episode 3, following on from episodes 1 and 2 this month in July. Firstly, a bit of background for whoever is joining us for the first time today. So Renee is our regional cloud advocate for the Sydney Reactor and the Australian region. She's passionate about technology, education, community, and bringing them all together in person and online. We'll be speaking today for about 30-35 minutes with some time for questions at the end. However, do ask as many questions as you want throughout. Renee will always keep an eye out on that comment section, and tell us where you've come from today if it's your first time joining us, or if you're joining us again, just feel free to say hi. And we will be sharing with you a link to our survey with the event code at the end. If you have time to fill that out, it would be greatly appreciated. And if there's anything that you've missed today, you can do reference back today's session on our Microsoft Reactor YouTube channel, and we will share the link with you later on. And there's links in the comments right now that are the additional resources Renee has shared as part of her presentation. So you can go and check those out and learn along with her. But for now, I'll hand the floor over to Renee to begin. Thanks, Renee, and over to you.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Sarah. Yes, and thank you all for coming along to episode 3 of Front-End Web Development Basics. If you've missed 1 and 2, like Anish in the comments, you can catch these all on YouTube. There is recordings of all of them there. If you jump onto my webpage for this site, it's the aka.ms Renee Noble Code Garden series. Then you can check them all out. They're all on my webpage, linked in there in order. So you can see them all. They're all on the Reactor YouTube as well if you want to go and have a look in there. Or you can follow me on YouTube. And I actually have a playlist just for this series where it's just going to pop at the new episode in there every week. So it's all there and you can see it. And thank you everyone for saying hi in the channel. So yeah. Lovely to have you here, whether it's your first time or your 20th time. I don't know if we've had 20 episodes of Code Garden, but it could be. So welcome. So today in the Code Garden, we are going to have a little look at last week's project because we're going to keep building on the website we've been building for the last 2 weeks. If you missed it, don't worry. It is different topics, so you'll be just fine. This week, we're going to be looking at JavaScript and the browser and how it works a bit, and then adding some functions and events. I'm going to give you a little sneak preview so you actually know what we're going to be making today. Then we're going to look at some cookies, and then we're going to have a little time at the end for some responsive CSS with Flexbox and media tags. Shout out to Daniel who requested Flexbox last week, so we are going to try and squeeze a little bit of that in today. So let's get to it because it's a packed schedule as usual, and all know how I'm bad at keeping to our time box because I'm just excited to talk to you all and tell you about stuff. So here today, we're going to be using in the Code Garden, our garden tools is Visual Studio Code. We've got CodeSwing, the extension installed, and we've already got all our code up on GitHub, and it's been pushed to a GitHub page. So you can actually check it out, what we've pushed in the last 2 weeks, if you do want to see that. And yeah, you can see that here at reneenoble.github.io/intro-front-end if you want to check it out. I will take us there actually, so we can actually have a look at that as well. But this should say, yeah, last week we worked on some targeted CSS. So being able to specify IDs and classes or structurally where we want to change some styles, containerizing things. That's how we've got these nice side-by-side layouts, and we got some hover elements. So let me just pop that on over here so we can actually have a look at it all. Let's jump to that one. Let's get that up. Oh, we want not that one. We want the GitHub IO. So yes, if you do want to use repo that you've set up, you can just go to your username.github.io/the repo name. I'm going to put the IO in there, otherwise it's not going to work. Okay, let's do it. Here we go. There it is. So we can see what's already up there. So this is what we've got up to last week. We've got this nice banner. We've got some styles going on. We've got our side-by-side, and we've got our hover there as well, which we did with our CSS hover styles. Let's make that a little bit bigger because it's a bit teeny tiny. So there we go. So let's see what we can do today to bring this to life with some JavaScript. So we're about to move past the static content stage because we want to have it do some stuff. So today we're going to be talking about clicking buttons, calling APIs, and more. What can you do with JavaScript and the browser to make your website even better, more than just like a pretty picture? So let's have a look at what we're going to be building today. So sneak preview. Looking very bright orange right now. Stop doing that. It's looking bright orange because that's going to be a nice sneak preview of how you can do media tags. I'm not actually going to change the whole website layout to make a mobile website layout because I didn't have time to do that all in one stream, but I will show you how the media tag works. So you could just change the styles, which might be make your whole site orange. We've also got this nav bar, which is done with Flexbox, and we've got the piece de resistance, and we're going to add a little problem, which is going to ask people to put in a guess, and then it's going to, once we've guessed what prints out here, maybe it's, why can't I type? I'm going to refresh the page because it's not working for some reason. Let's do that. 3 isn't correct. You're going to put something, a red box down the bottom. The answer is, I don't know why it's not typing. Interesting. That bodes well for the stream. Anyway, does the type elsewhere? Let us look. I don't really know what's going on there. Let's see if my keyboard is definitely working. And there we go. Okay, something had gone very strange. Now, if we get it right, it gives you a green thing added, and it will reward you with an image that has been randomly selected from an API that should be in the category of plants because we're in the code garden. This is being tagged with plants, apparently, maybe because it's got seeds. So that's why it's given to us. But if we keep submitting 24, we get some more ones. And that's what we're going to do today. It is actually using cookies. So if we refresh this page, it's still going to have all of our guesses. So maybe if you go away and you come back because you still want to solve that Python problem, you want to see what's going on there. But we can see that all of our guesses are being stored in the cookies over here. So we're going to be taking a look at all of that today. So without further ado, let's get to it. So we are going to be talking a bit about manipulating the DOM, the document object model, because everything in our page, all of those items, basically everything that's in a tag is creating a structure that has properties, and those are the color properties maybe that you've set. It's got a width, and it's got parents that it's connected to, maybe list items, etc. So it's really just all a big structure that we can change and update with JavaScript. So JavaScript is the language of manipulating the DOM, and to be strictly true, JavaScript is just a scripting language. You can write JavaScript just because you want to. You don't have to do it for the web. It just happens to be the one that runs in the browser, and that makes everything go. You can set it up, event triggers with it. So when things like clicking a button happen, then it will trigger a function to run, and that can change your page in whatever way you like. And you can run it in the console. Let's have a quick look at that, actually. I'm going to get back this screen. So I've got the console here. So if you don't know how to get that up, you can do get inspect, and then you'll get a console, and you'll have this whole thing on the side here. And we can say something like alert. And this is going to pop us up a little box with the message, hello. There we go. That's our alert box up here. So it's easy as that. You can make your own alert box. And you can, inspect all kinds of aspects of your page with this here. You can, create variables that do stuff. And this is a great place to check out what's going on with your page and to test out bits and pieces of code as you want to develop them. So that is what we can do with JavaScript just as a touchstone point of how to get started. So let's get started on making our own event and trigger. So we're going to start with the form that I showed you, where we're going to have our little Python problem, check for some answers. If, depending on whether they're right, we want them to be added red or green. So we're going to add an item, a list item, and it's going to have a class that's going to be like it was correct or incorrect, so it knows whether to color it red or green. And if it is correct, we're going to ask the Unsplash API for an image that is a plant. And that's what we're going to start with. So let us get to the code. Okay, so let's make this a lot bigger. Okay, so we're going to need our JavaScript file too. So because I have closed it, I'm just actually going to open it in here. So with CodeSwing, you can have, the 3 different ones open, but I think we would lose a bit too much screen real estate. So let's just open it here in the bottom one. And we now have a blank JavaScript file, and we're going to need to start by connecting that one up to our page. So much like the CSS file, we need to say, hey, I've got this cool file for you. It's over there. Don't forget to read it. And something that we normally do with JavaScript, because it will run that whole file once you have said this is where the file is, we're going to put it at the bottom of our document, actually. So we're not actually going to put it at the top here where the style sheet is thing is. We're going to put it right at the bottom. And that's because we might have some JavaScript that runs immediately, but it needs us to have set up all of the objects, all of these tags, which it might be referencing. So if you put it first, it might break because you might be saying, make this picture this wide or update the colors on these things, but they don't exist yet, so it's just going to fail. So I'm just going to grab the code for adding that first up. Okie dokie. So let's get that. Okay, so this one is going in a script tag because it is a script. So you can technically write all of your JavaScript inside a script tag in here, and you could do your alert in here or whatever you wanted. But typically, just like the CSS, it's best practices to keep it in a separate file so we can have clear divisions of where everything is, and it's easier to find and easier to work with, and it doesn't get all messy and mingled together. So that's our first step. Next up, we're going to need to have a few more bits and pieces that are in our HTML because we want to have a form firstly. And so I'm going to start by creating a div that's going to keep our puzzle area in there. So I'm going to put it just here above, at the bottom of the body, above. Actually, I'm going to have it inside the main. I have 2 closing body tags. I don't want that. Let's tidy up while we're in here. Okay. Cool. Let us do a div. And I'm going to give it puzzle ID. I'll just copy in some of these first because we don't have heaps of time for me watching me typing out things. So creating a div. Let's close the div. And it's going to have try this Python puzzle as a heading. And then we're going to have that image. So it's just an image that I took a screenshot of something so we could have an image because we don't need to have everything in there. Sometimes a solution to web design is just to have a picture. So we're just going to get this puzzle picture and we're going to pop it into our image file here. So that's a start. Okay, and now we're going to want our form. So normally you'd have some more properties that go with your form, like make a post request to this address in your server, but we don't actually want it to do that. We want all of this checking to happen on the front end, much like how Wordle exists and it doesn't actually connect to a server to check if you are right or wrong. It's actually just all there in the browser already. You have the answers. You could cheat by looking it up with that inspect element and looking through the code. you could do that with this as well if you wanted to find out the answer. But just as I did, for a plus 4 in the console, we're just going to calculate if the answer is right or wrong. So I'm going to start by putting in just a label that's going to say what prints out. That's the question, and then we want the box that goes with that question. And because I want to label that box the answer, that's what I'm calling it, I've also put this for answer. So this is saying this label belongs to the answer box. And finally, to finish off our form, I'm going to add a submit button. Okay. And its ID is answer button. So that way we can look it up later. Okay, so that's our form. I'm going to add a couple other things while we're here. So at some point, we're going to have an image when they have got the correct answer, and we're going to want somewhere to put that. I'm going to put it in this box, this image tag called win image. But you'll notice I haven't given it a source like I have with this one, because we're actually not going to give it the source until later. So when they get it right, we're going to say, great, they got it right. Now I'm going to go be bothered to ask the Unsplash API for an image, and I'm going to use JavaScript to update the source. So until then, it's just going to be blank. There will be no empty space or anything because there is no image. But that means we can just have it there and then later target win image and say, we've got a picture for you, and then it will display, which is pretty cool. And then I want to have a header that says where all the guesses, like what all the guesses they made were. And then I'm going to have a list for them all to get added to. So it's going to say, here are the guesses. Because they haven't made any guesses yet, it would be weird to have a heading that said yes, guesses. So I'm going to say that it's hidden. And when they start making guesses, then I'm going to unhide it. And it's going to have the heading. And then it's going to have some list items in here. But for now, it's just an empty list. So we actually won't see any of this until we use some JavaScript to add some items and unhide this header. So that is the plan. We're all set up for that now. One other thing is that last week we made all these beautiful things here. I think we will want to add just a little more classing, or let's say IDs, to that, just so when we want to add some stuff later, because we've got another list coming down here, we don't want to apply all of these things. And because I was lazy at the end of last week's episode, and we would see why that would be not useful if we leave this here without an ID, we are going to pop on an ID so it doesn't apply. We've just said all unordered lists are going to look exactly like this, which is not what we want. So let's pop in just an ID. This is, I call it topics list. And then we're just going to apply that to our CSS. We're going to say, okay, instead of it being all unordered lists, we'll just update it so it's just things called topic lists. So let's go jump to our CSS before we get too deep into our JavaScript. And we're going to have this over here. So we should have this one here. That one's going to be a topic list rather than all lists. And then we're going to have topic lists. So any list items within inside a topic list are also going to have that rather than all list items ever. So that's looking better. And then finally, the same for our links within our topic list. And then our hover is also only applied to our topic list. Otherwise, there's going to be a lot of green boxes everywhere. Okay, I think we're ready to go. We've neatened it up, which is, kind of how you go with development. You go, oh, I'll just try this. And then later you're like, oh, no, everything's a green box. That's no good. So here we go. It has pushed everything over a lot. So I'm not exactly sure what part I've missed, but that's fine. We'll figure that part out later as we go, I reckon. So let's write some JavaScript. Okay, so we've got all of our bits and pieces now ready to go, but we do need to be able to hold them, basically. We need a handle, as we would call it, on the objects. So we're going to do something called get document by ID. Get element by ID, because we call all of these things elements. So, for instance, let's go to our place that we have them all. We have our answer button, and we're going to want to have a hold on the answer button, because at some point someone's going to press it, and we need to know where it is that was pressed. So we need to be able to say, hey, we want the answer button, so we can set up our alert, our action, our trigger on the answer button. So I've said document, which is the whole page, get the element by its ID, which we've given it. So it can just look it up and be like, okay, this is that object. Here you go, assign it to a variable. In JavaScript, you do need to say const or let when you are creating your variables. So const is something that doesn't change. Let is assigning a variable that will change throughout. And yeah, so you might also be familiar with a var. I believe let is the way that we do it now. It's because of something to do with scoping in JavaScript. I'm going to say up front, I'm not the super best JavaScripter in the world. I don't write that much JavaScript, but I feel like if you're getting started, I know the kind of stuff that helps, because it's a little bit confusing along the way. So that's where I sit. Cool. So we've got our answer button. We're going to want a bunch of other stuff as well. So I'm going to pop all of these in here. Don't forget to add your semicolons in JavaScript, because otherwise it gets mad. But it's already mad at me for some reason, because I think, here we go, I have messed up and I've accidentally put it inside of each other. This is what it should look like, except we have all of these semicolons. Okay, I'm also actually going to just pop at the top what the correct answer is. So for this problem that we're doing, the correct answer is 24. And then, yeah, so now we're kind of ready to start with our functions. So the first thing we're going to do is say, okay, we've got the answer button. When it gets clicked, I want to run the submit answer function. You might be like, what is a submit answer function? And if the answer is, we haven't written it yet. That's what we're going to do now. So we're saying whenever it gets clicked, run this. Note to you all, don't put your running it brackets yet. We're just kind of saying over there, that's the function you want. But if you put the brackets there, it will run the function and it will make your site not work well. So don't do that. Okay, let us start with the function. So to write a function definition, we start by saying function, then your function name, and then your brackets, and then a curly bracket to start you off. Whoop. And then everything is going to go inside of here. Yes, thank you, Sarah. Semicolons are optional now. I do prefer not having to write semicolons all the time too. I guess, this editor sometimes yells at me. No, maybe stop yelling at me for not doing semicolons. That would be nice. That's probably why I didn't remember to put all these semicolons in my practice notes when I made them. Question from Aussie Tradie. How long does HTML, CSS, JavaScript stay current for? I'm doing a 12-month-old course and it's already mostly outdated. I guess it kind of depends on when the course was written. Was it written 12 months ago? Because I think a lot of it still stays relevant, the ideas, but there's always new features getting added to web dev stuff. So I feel like a year is not too old though. I guess if you're doing, different frameworks and stuff, they kind of go in and out of vogue in terms of what people want to use. But I think the tools still stay pretty valid. And then you just add new ones on as they get released. Like Flexbox, which is relatively recent, but also not that recent. I'm going to say it's a couple of years old now, but people are still like, oh, just picking up on Flexbox. So yeah, I think you'll be all right. Okay, so let's get back to our function. So the first thing we want to do is we want to get what is in this box down here. So we've got our box here on the right. We want to get what is someone has typed in there. So it could be anything, could be a number, something useful. Okay, so to do that, we've already got a handle on the answer because we've said get the answer, which we called this box, the answer, get that element. So we can say, okay, well, I want the value of that. I'm going to say that's my guess. So we can say get answer, get the value out of it. And yeah, nope, don't do that. We just want the value. There we go. Okay, so that's the start. And then we want to just, what we're going to do is return false at the end of this. So that's going to be, because we are not submitting this form to like a web server, we do need to say return false. Otherwise, it will automatically refresh the page every time you click the button, which is really annoying. It was very annoying while I was coding this up. One other thing we want to do is we want to check the answer. So we could do is 24 equal to this, is to the answer in here, but I'm actually going to make a separate one. So when we get to the cookies, it's already all there, ready to go. So in the check answer one, which we're about to write here, we're going to see if they guessed the right number, and then if they did, add an item to the guess list. And then make sure it has the right class so it gets colored red or green. So let's get that happening now. So we're going to call this function. So we need to take in guess. That's what we said. We want to be able to pass this function. And then, so in the function, we're going to do a few things. So firstly, I want to say, don't have that header that says guesses hidden anymore. So we can say the guess header that we grabbed before here using the ID getting function, hidden property is false. So it was true before when we wrote hidden, and now it's not. So it's going to appear, which will be great. And then if the guess was correct, so let's start off with that if statement. So this is how we set them up here. We have if, and then we have our condition in these brackets. And then once again, we have some more curly brackets. So we're going to say if they got the correct guess, we're going to say the result is correct. And we're going to use this result as the class that we're going to assign that new item in the list. So that's going to be the red or the green color. Okay, let's do that first, and then we'll add the fun picture. So if it's not correct, it's incorrect, and then we're going to add that. So let's say document. So we're going to create a list item, and then we're going to say we want to append that item. So we said, okay, make a list item. We've put in a variable called li, so we can hold on to it until we attach it to our document. Oh, no, sorry, that's not what we're doing yet. We're saying we're creating a guess. So that's that value from up here. So we've got that number. So maybe we've said it's 73. That's what's going to print out. That would be in guess. And we're going to create the text. So that's put the number 73 into the list item. So it's the actual leaf node of our tree. That is the text that you see. And then we want to add a class, which is going to be the result. So was it, do we want it to be green or red? We do need to add that CSS, which we'll do in a second. And then we want to get that object and we want to actually put it in to our guesses list, which we grabbed earlier with the get element by ID. So we made a thing, we gave it some properties, which includes the number that it is and the color it should be, and then we're going to add it to our list. So we have all that. Let's add our CSS as well, which is just going to be 2 different classes, which I'm going to pop in. Let's save that first. Save that and pop this. Let's just pop it right down the bottom. Okay, we have CSS for our different colors. Okay, so let's give it a go. I can't remember if it actually works in here. It does. Good. So we can see 4 is incorrect, and we can see 24 is correct. So that's all working. So I think just one more fun thing, so we get a reward when you get it right, is that we want our awesome picture to show up once we have got it correct. So to do that, we're going to do a fetch, and then we're going to ask the API on Unsplash, which is just a stock image photo thing, to give us a photo that has a plant in it. Hopefully, they don't always actually have a plant. So here's the code we're going to use. We say fetch this URL. So we can actually go to this URL and it will redirect us. So let's do that so we know what we're doing. Here's our site from before. Here we go. Okay, so I'm going to go to here and it's saying I want a random photo that has plants in it that has a size and width, like a height and width of 200. So then it goes, oh, well, that's not fun. Let's try it again. Here we go. So we get this photo that has some plants in it. We can get another one. We can get another one. I'm not convinced this 200 pixel thing works. Let's get rid of that. Here we go. Lots of plants. So we get plants delivered to us by the API. And it just redirects us to a different URL, as you probably saw at the top. It's no longer what I put in. And that's basically what we're getting. We're getting the URL back. And then we can, as I said earlier, say that the source of our win image is that URL that we get returned. So we're just going to ask for the URL basically. And then, as it says, once we get that, so it could happen later, we do have to wait for the response. Once we get the response, set the win image source to be the URL that we got in the response. And that's as simple as that of how to get this. So I don't know if this happens to work in here. Let's try it again. Okay, I don't think that works in our code swing thing, potentially for asking our API, but let us grab the HTML for our site. Just going to pop this, reveal in Finder, so I can open it up in a browser. Okay. Let's see how we're doing. Okay, 24 is the answer. There we go. We've got our plant. Simple as that. We probably want to add some CSS to make it not giant. But we're already running out of time, so I'm actually just going to leave it to be enormous. Okay, so that's looking good, I think. Let us now move on to some cookies. So with the cookies, they're a way of storing data in the browser. So you can check that out under the Applications tab. As I showed you earlier, you can actually see the cookies, and we can even do document.getCookies to show them in the console as I was typing out, like where I typed alert earlier. So let us do that. You do want to watch out for what browser you're using with this, because I fell into the trap, which I feel like I've done before, of when you're doing locally hosted stuff with cookies, if you're using Edge or Chrome, they don't actually show you the cookies. So these ones have been deployed on GitHub Pages, so it's all easy there. As we can see, if you go into this part here, we've got application is selected, and you can go in the storage panel and you can click on cookies and you can see it there. We can do document cookies, cookie, and we can see what the cookie is, which is there. So it's as easy as that. It's just some data that's hanging out in your web browser. So if you are using Edge or Chrome, when you test this, you'll have to either deploy it to GitHub Pages or use Safari or one of the other things, Firefox, etc. They all let you use cookies locally without having to deploy it. Okay, so with cookies, we need to write some cookies. We need to set some cookies, read them, and we've just checked them out in the web browser. So we've already ticked that box. So let me just get my notes out. So as I said, I'm not, a super all the time front-end developer. So I actually have only used cookies a couple of times, and I just have some code that I must have found at some point that does the part that gets the cookies for me. I'm going to show it to you and show you why you don't need to worry about all of the stuff. And sometimes you just borrow some code and it works. Obviously, if you're going to do something that's security focused or something, you would want to know entirely how everything works. And often we use cookies for tokens and keeping you logged in. But in this case, we're just using it for keeping some guesses to a question that don't matter. It doesn't matter at all. So we're just going to use this, which I don't 100% fully know how it works. We get the thing, we split it up, and we parse the JSON that comes out of it. Maybe I wrote this a long time ago. I can't remember. But basically, we grab the data out of the cookie that I just showed you in the browser. Suntansu has asked is there a guide when to use cookies versus local storage versus IndexedDB? I'm not sure. I'll see if there is something. But that's a good question. But I don't think I know in my brain. I haven't done a really comparison of all of those before. So I will think about that one and look around in Microsoft Learn to see what our options are. So let's get back to our cookies. We've got the stuff that gets the cookies. So if you have a cookie, this is going to find it for you. I will put all this code up at the end of the session so you don't have to write all of that out. This one makes a lot more sense. I'm going to write some code for setting a cookie. This one is a function that's called setCookie. I give it a list of guesses, and what it does is it turns them into JSON, which can be stored as a cookie, and then I say the cookie string is going to be guesses, and it's going to be equal to the string of that JSON. And then I set document cookie to be the cookie string. Makes sense, pretty chill. So there are those two bits and pieces. When we get a response, we're going to want to set a cookie. So, and assuming whether it's right or wrong, it doesn't matter. So we're going to add that to the submit answer function we wrote earlier. So we are going to get the guess. We're going to set the cookie. And then we are going to, we're going to update all guesses first. So we're going to get our list of guesses, all guesses. We're going to push a guess. I do need to make our list of guesses somewhere. I think I'd make it down here. So we'll do that in just a second. And then we need to add the thing and then say, okay, the cookie is now equal to this list of guesses, and just update the whole list. You would probably want to do it in a different way if you were dealing with massive amounts of data, but this is really small data. So I'm just happy to overwrite the list over and over again. Okay, so let's get down to the cookie business. So when we open the page, the first thing we want to do is get the cookies. And then we're going to say all the guesses are equal to a list. So we're saying, okay, open the cookies. And then if there is a cookie, so we said, please get the cookie above here. If there is a cookie, because maybe there isn't, and if the cookie has guesses in it, then go and get all the cookies out of the guesses, basically. Get the guesses. I'm going to store it in all guesses. And then let's just print it to the console when we do that. Then for each of those, we're going to do exactly what we do when we check the answer. We're going to add the item to the list, and it's going to go green or red. But we don't need to get it from the box when the button is clicked. So we can just use that second function, check answer, for each of the guesses that we've received. And then I think that should do all of our cookie stuff for us. So I'm going to need to open this in a different location because otherwise it's not going to work. Okay, so let's get this one opened in. Show you that in Finder so I can grab it and put it into Safari, which I have open here because I am on a Mac, but you can use Firefox if you want to test it locally. Okay, fingers crossed. So I can go and make some guesses. That's my wonderful guess. Okay, and now if I refresh the page, they're still there. So simple as that, we can make some guesses and then they hang out, and then we get our beautiful picture of our plant, obviously. I'm not sure what's going on with Unsplash there. And then every time we refresh the page, if we've previously got a right answer, we get a lovely plant back because it does that when it checks the answer. So those are our cookies and our form. So any questions on that before I jump onto doing our last little flavor bits of CSS? So yeah, cookies have kind of, been mind-boggling to you, or you just didn't know where to get started. You can just do it as fast as that. I feel like we did it on like 7 minutes of stream on how to do cookies. Yeah, so let's jump back to our CSS then. So we're going to take a quick look at Flexbox and media tags because we had some requests, and then I'm going to let you all go and then hopefully see you in next month. So let us get back our code up. Okay, so we're going to start first with the Flexbox stuff. So Flexbox is often used in something like a navigation bar. So we're going to put one in here at the top. So I'm going to grab a little bit of code first, so I don't have to write it all out. Okay, and it's just going to be some links to some things, and I'll tell you how they work. Okay, so at the top, just below the heading, we're going to say, okay, I want an unordered list of some things, and these are all linking to a place in this page. So as you can see, let's go here. I've said that this goes to hash bio, and what that's going to do is take you to the heading that is listed as bio as the index, and you can just link to them that way. So I can just pop down to where my bio is, or I can pop down to where the Python puzzle is, etc. So that's really convenient when you want to link within a page. So that is what our nav bar is going to start out with. And you can also see that I've added some classes. So this overarching class, the unordered list, is going to have flex container, and then each thing inside is going to have flex item. I'm going to apply 2 different sets of styles that make this work together as a Flexbox schema, basically. So let us go and add the flex styling. Okay, so CSS time. Let's jump down to the bottom, and I'm going to start with the container. So flex container. What exactly we called it? Yes, flex container with a hyphen. Have that dot at the front. Okay, and in here, we're going to need to add a couple of things. Let's just start with the stuff that we need for the flex. So let's make this come over here so we can actually see what's happening. So now we can see I've added display flex. So now they've all gone in line, one line. I'm going to leave flex end off for the moment. Actually, I'll put it on to show you what happens when you do flex end. So it's the thing that's making it go to the right-hand side. So you might want to flex everything over that side is an option, but we don't really mind. And I'm just going to set the flex basis to be 1. No, that's wrong. That's going to go on the other half. So the flex basis is kind of going to be like the minimum width for each item. So let's go to the flex items. So I'm going to, as I said, set the flex basis I'm going to say it's 180 pixels. So now we can see that they are each 180 wide. And when it gets wider, they take up more space each. So they kind of collapse in and then they become bigger. And that's our Flexbox idea right there. So that's basically it. And we can add things like Flex Grow, where everything is going to grow equally if they need to take up more space. So kind of had that default behavior, but we might want to say, but we want the first child to be more like wider than the others. So I'm going to say that I'm just going to zoom this out for a second so we can have a bit more space to play with. That I want the first item, which I can say the first item and the first child of the flex items should be up to 5 times wider, take up to 5 times, it's like a ratio of the space than the other one. So we can see that it's doing a different thing there now. Whereas if I do this back to 1, then they're all going to take up an equal amount of space. So that's how you can use Flexbox to play around with space, to grow or shrink depending on what you want to do with the space. But that's kind of just a basis for how it works. So yeah, let's just make that a bit prettier. I'm just going to chuck in some more styling just to make things be green, give them some margins. Let's have our top nav. We don't want it to have any of these dots because they look silly. I'm also going to get rid of, because they're all links. They're doing, this could be top nav or this could be flex item. It doesn't really matter because I've got both on them. Flex item. So yeah, we've just added some styling to get rid of the text decoration. So there's no underline, so there's no dots. So they're all floating in line. And yeah, but we could see even without this how it was starting to spread out and take up the space as required. So that is, our Flexbox. And you can just play around. As we can see, it's got like a white bar above this right now, but you can play around, get rid of all of that stuff. Make it do whatever you want. So for our last little treat, a tiny little bit of code, which is super helpful. I'm just going to do just one very basic example, but you can see how you could basically do a whole nother schema, like a whole nother CSS style within this code. So what this is going to do is say media, and then the part you want to see is max width 600 pixels. So you could set a min width for something. And basically this is saying for a screen that is up to 600 pixels wide, we want to do something different. So I'm going to just set the body in here to be orange, but you could set it, all the font sizes to be bigger, or all of the pictures, instead of being next to each other, to be under the text that they go with. But once I've added this, when my screen gets too narrow, it makes everything go orange. So you can see that you can just change your code and you can have an entirely different CSS style in here. So that is basically how that works. And this is really useful. I'm just going to take a quick last minute look into our site. I'm going to pop this back here because, you can use a tool that looks like, okay, here we go. So when we're on our site, we can go into here. And if you look at the top of this right-hand corner, you can toggle the development toolbar for the device. So I can make it look more like a phone. I can make it look like a tablet, etc. I can change the, play with the width of it for a really narrow phone, for instance. You start to see what it looks like. You also see it in here. It doesn't actually it kind of scales the website. And that's kind of like when you go on a phone, it's really small and you're like, oh, I have to scroll in to see anything. It's probably scaling it instead of, just making it all flow and making it be broken, which is better in some ways, but also hard to read. So maybe you just want to up all your font sizes in this situation. So that is our last bit of that. I will just answer the questions that have come in before I wrap up for the day. What's the main language used by Azure for backend in the cloud? Sudhansu has answered, well, doesn't really force you to use a certain backend language. You can set up a bunch of stuff. You can set up a server to run whatever you want. in basically, a container or on a virtual machine. There's just a lot of ways to connect a bunch of different things into it. So that is, thank you, Sue, for answering that one. And thank you, Sarah, for, I'm glad you got a lot out of the series this month. So let me know if you have any last minute questions in here. But I'll just let you know that on the website that Sarah has shared, there is a link to this series, this pathway of content on Microsoft Learn, and has like a whole bunch of modules in order of how to make a web, like develop something. It's got JavaScript, HTML, CSS for beginners. So if you enjoyed this series and you want to put it into action, that would be a great place to start, I think. But other than that, next month, we're going to be cultivating a Python Flask web server and bringing it to life with Azure. So right now we've been doing static or like front-end websites, but it doesn't have like a backend. It's not on a server, so it can't be dynamic on the backend. It's all done in the browser. So we're going to take a look at that next month and how you can deploy that server with Azure Web Apps. So that's what's coming up. And I don't think we have any more questions, so I'm going to pass back to Sarah.
Great. Thank you so much, Renee, and thank you to everyone for tuning in. As Renee mentioned, we have all the links there in the comment section, including the link to the YouTube video for today. So if there's anything that you missed, you can watch the on-demand version, and definitely go through to that link for the AKA with the Code Garden series to sign up for next month's series. They're all currently up on our meetup page, so please go register, and we'll see you next time for another Microsoft Reactor live stream event. Have a good rest of your afternoon, evening, or morning. Thanks, Renee.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.